Alright, restoration comedy yet again. I'm going to just talk to you. This is kind of like a bit of social historical context for you, but it's also quite important for you to understand this with regards to the action of the play. It's called, but essentially, the town-country divide. So back in Restoration England during the sort of 1700s, 1600s and stuff, people from the town who lived in cities and whatnot looked down upon people who lived in the country. And really, if you think about it, like regionalistic kind of prejudice is still something that really is quite strong and still exists today. You know, all you have to do is see like two local football teams playing in a match, and that would be called a local derby, and then there's a lot more rivalry attached to those kinds of sort of matches. So regionalism, essentially, which is what I'm talking about, was something that was still very very prevalent during the Restoration period, during the Restoration comedy period. And if you take into account the fact that the play is in fact called The Country Wife, one of the things that the play is actually mocking, one of the things that it is satirising, is this stereotype of what people from the country, people essentially who are not from London, people from the country were like. Now, the example that we would give, having looked and read the play, would be Margery Pinchwife. So Margery Pinchwife is the country wife by name. She comes from the country with Mr. Pinchwife into town on a visit, and that's kind of where the whole plot structure kind of starts with, you know, all the other bits and bobs that are going on as well. So for you to really kind of appreciate like the comedy of the play, you need to know that as the country character, as the country wife character Margery, she has to be distinctively different from the other characters who live in the town. And I'll give you some examples here. In the productions that I've seen, she's often wearing much more kind of simple, plain kind of type clothes compared to some of the other female characters like Lady Squeamish or Lady Fidget. They would be wearing the kind of very most latest kind of fashions, and this would involve lots of very ruffy kind of dresses with huge cages on them and big, I think they're called gussets, or those things that you tie up around your, I don't know because only women would wear them, but you know what I mean, those kind of thingies. The name will come to me after I've finished doing this video. But anyway, someone like Margery will probably not be wearing such elaborate kind of costumes. She would also have a very distinctively different accent from the other characters. She, when played by Helen Mirren in one of the productions that is actually available on the internet, she talks like this, like in a kind of country bumpkin type voice. So she's sort of from Gloucester, or you know, sort of Bristolian kind of accent, and that is a specific kind of thing that she's done on purpose, because the audiences of that time, they would have been from the city, because these plays were being performed in theatres within cities. They would hear that accent and they would see the kind of character that this girl is, and they would recognise her essentially as a country kind of bumpkin, someone who just doesn't have a clue about anything to do with city life. And if you think about it, you know, Margery Pinchwife really does fall well into that category. It's one of the first things that we hear her say in the first times we meet her is she says something like, "Oh, where are the best places to go walking in London? Where can I go? What shall I do?" And she's sort of like, she comes across as very naive, like she doesn't really know anything about London. And so this idea of not understanding like the country town kind of divide, and how that the two were very prejudiced against each other, or certainly the town people were incredibly prejudiced towards the country people because they thought that they were all just kind of these weird country thickos and very unsophisticated. You can actually understand a bit more about like the way the play works, like that level that the play is operating at, and a level of satire. So remember, satire is something that is mocking a specific kind of thing or person or kind of trend that is happening in society. Well, the satirical thing on that particular aspect that we've been talking about in today's video is this idea of of Margery coming from the country. So trying to distill it down into a nutshell, we've got the town-country divide, we have like the satirising essentially of someone who is coming from the country, and Margery Pinchwife is actually a character that will probably be made fun of a little bit by the audience and by the other characters for being so kind of naive and countrified. She also works on another level, which is actually that as a kind of sexual object. She's a very sexy kind of flirty character, which I think the audience would have liked liked as well. So if you put those two things together, the fact that she sort of comes across as this kind of simpleton from the country, but she's also quite kind of sexually alluring, what you've actually got there is quite a rich character that is able to work on a comedic level, but also able to work on a level of like being able to flirt with the audience and get them all aroused and kind of into the scenes that she's in. And there are a couple of really good examples of when you can do that and you're playing Marjorie within the play, either if you're playing her or if you're actually writing about it in an essay. So there you have it, the town-country divide and how it applies to the character of Marjorie Pinchwife in A Country Wife. I will see you next time. Bye.